Hello, everyone. Welcome to Barca News. It is May 9th, 2025, and Barcelona have renewed a key player in their academy. Also, Frenkie de Jong's future is still uncertain and will not be decided until the end of the season. And finally, we're going to talk about whether there's a possibility of signing Jeremy Frimpong. We have a lot to discuss, so let's begin. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the channel. My name is Mo, and this is the Barca News Live Podcast. My favorite days are podcast days, which are on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, where not only do we discuss Barcelona news, but I also get to interact with you lovely people in the chat section by reading your comments, answering your questions, and getting the discussion going. For those of you who will be watching when the podcast ends, I will be putting timestamps in the description, chapters in the timeline, in case you do want to skip through the discussion and get straight into the news. Having said all that, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment. If you are looking for any Barcelona jerseys or merchandise, including the Travis Scott kit for this El Clasico match, make sure you head to Kitback, Goal Kits, or Fanatics. If you are looking to place any sports bets, if you're feeling lucky, you want to bet on this weekend's match, head to Bet Us. All links are down below in the description. You click on them, you get access to some pretty cool deals and offers. All right, let's begin with the news. And as always, the first segment of news is compiled of multiple little bits of news combined together. That sentence made sense, right? I'm tired. It's Friday. But anyways, let's talk about a Clasico match because we are only 2 days away, actually less than 2 days away. I would say a day and a half away from El Clasico match, which will be an incredibly important match this season because it could determine or it could have a big impact on the outcome of this La Liga season because Barcelona are only 4 points ahead of Real Madrid. If Barcelona win, it would be a 7-point difference, and with 3 matches left, pretty much Barcelona would be almost guaranteed to win La Liga unless something goes horribly wrong and they lose the last 3 remaining matches, which is highly unlikely. And if Real Madrid win, they would only be a point behind Barcelona, and this, of course, would give Real Madrid a big boost and a good chance of being able to win La Liga. So hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully Barcelona seals the deal, beats Real Madrid for the 4th time this season, and hopefully we can seal this La Liga title. Now, speaking of El Clasico match, Florentino Perez, it has been announced that Florentino Perez, the Real Madrid president, will not be present at El Clasico match. He will not be traveling to the city of Barcelona. Now, if you don't know by now, it's tradition that when 2 clubs play each other, not just Real Madrid and Barcelona, any 2 clubs play each other in La Liga, the 2 presidents and the board of directors of those clubs, they meet, they have a luncheon together, maybe dinner, depending on the time of the match, and then together they watch the match in the presidential box in that stadium. That's the tradition. That's been a tradition for decades. And while Florentino Perez will not be traveling to Barcelona, he will not be meeting with Laporta, he will not be sharing a meal with Laporta, and he will not be watching the match from the presidential box at the Olympic Stadium Luis Companys. Now, we don't know why, it has not been stated why, but the rumors is that Florentino Perez is getting ready to step down as the Real Madrid president, and that's why his public appearances as a Real Madrid president have been on a decline. Now, I do understand if Florentino Perez is truly getting ready to step down, I do understand him reducing his public appearances in his capacity as Real Madrid president, but I still think it's a lack of respect. I mean, this is tradition. Laporta has always shown up to Madrid. He's always had dinner with Florentino Perez. He's always been at Santiago Bernabeu. So even if Florentino Perez is getting ready to step down, I think he should have the common decency, at least, of going to the match. You don't want to have dinner with Laporta, that's fine. At least go to the match. But that's not the case, because if there's something we know about Madrid is that, well, they lack, well, I shouldn't say they lack. They possess zero courtesy, as we've seen time and time again. Now, speaking of El Clasico match, of course, the team today trained ahead of that match, And Barcelona have announced that in these 48 hours leading up to El Clasico match, there will be no interviews given by the players. Barcelona have prohibited the players from speaking to the press, or prohibited the press from speaking to the players. And the reason why Barcelona have decided to do this, because of course there's a lot of controversy around refereeing, with Real Madrid constant videos produced by Real Madrid TV attacking the referees and trying to put pressure on them. And then with what happened against Inter Milan, with all those refereeing mistakes, with the players being upset at what the referee did during the match, Barcelona think that if the press get access to the players, obviously all the questions are going to be about referee. What happened at Inter? What do you think is going to happen in Madrid? And Barcelona have agreed with Deco, with Flick, that they don't want any of that. They want to be fully focused on El Clasico match. They want the players to be fully focused on the El Clasico match. So they don't want them, having given interviews and thinking and talking about what happened in Inter Milan and the referee this, the referee that. They want them fully focused on the match. So Barcelona, in agreement with Flick and Deco, have decided to prohibit the press from speaking to the players until after El Clasico match, where hopefully the players will be given interviews celebrating Barcelona's victory against Real Madrid. Now, speaking of the Inter Milan match and all the refereeing mistakes, check out this picture. If you don't know who those are, that's the guy in the black shirt in the middle. That's Infantino, the president of the FIFA, right next to the Polish referee, Marciniak. He's the guy who ref the match between Inter Milan and Barcelona. And, well, Infantino made a post on his social media account congratulating Inter Milan for making it to the final. And now he is currently here in the U.S., kind of like setting up for the Club World Cup. And in his congratulatory post, saying that he also hopes Inter Milan win the Club World Cup. Of course, before the match between Barcelona and Inter, he had already stated that he wants Inter Milan to win because he was a fan of Inter Milan. And again, it begs the question, what are we doing here? I mean, look, I'm not saying as the president of FIFA, he shouldn't be a fan of any club. That's impossible. If you're in the business of football, it's because you like football. And if you like football, you most likely follow a team. I, for example, let's say in 10 years, I become, I don't know, a member of the board of La Liga. I'm not going to stop supporting Barca. Of course, I'm going to still support Barca. But now that you're in a position of power, that you represent more than just one club, more than just one country, at least have the decency, the common courtesy, the common sense of not saying these things out loud. If I become, for example, the president of La Liga, I'm not going to stop supporting Barca, but I'm also not going to get on the mic and be like, let's go Barca, I'm a Barca fan. I'm not going to say that. I'm still going to watch Barca matches. I'm still going to root for Barca, but I'm not going to be in the public in my capacity as the president of La Liga talking about Barca this, Barca that, because as a president of La Liga, you no longer represent Barca. You represent all the clubs. Same thing with Infantino. But it seems the day of common sense are over. Here we have Infantino rooting for Inter Milan before the match, congratulating them after the match, hoping they win the Club World Cup, taking pictures with Marciniak. I mean, what the fuck is going on? But anyways, let's start with the comment section, and then we are going to talk about not one, but two academy players, one who just renewed and one who runs the risk Barcelona run the risk of the Premier League poaching him. All right, let's see what everyone's saying. We have Morgan who says, hey, Mo, great job. Barca will be back stronger come Sunday. Visca Barca. Amen, my friend. As we've seen from the multiple comments by the players after the Inter Milan defeat, a lot of them are still saying, the season's not over. We have another final against Real Madrid. We want to go out there and win. We want to win La Liga. And that's good, of course. That's very exciting to see that the players are still like focused on the season. They're still focused on this match because, the defeat that we suffered at the hands of Inter Milan is a very tough defeat. And any player or any team could easily say, all right, our season's over. I don't care what happens. But that doesn't seem to be the case with Barcelona players. They know that the season is not over. They know that there's still a title at play. And they look like they still want to fight for it. And that's very, very important. And hopefully that's the case. Hopefully on Sunday, they'll come out fully focused, concentrated, with full intensity. And hopefully we'll get another victory. And hopefully we will win La Liga title. McCoy says, Mo, do you think Barcelona should go after Nico Williams and try to get Rashford on loan? We need all the help for next season. Here's the thing. It's either one or the other. Okay. People keep forgetting that we're still in a deep economic, financial, I don't want to say crisis, but definitely we're not doing well economically. People are always talking about sign this and sign that. And it's like we're still in economic trouble. We're still not doing well financially. We still don't have that much money. We still have problems with financial fair play. We still have problems with registering players. Remember, Dani Olmo and Pau Victor are only registered under a court order. They're not registered officially. So it's either one or the other. We either get Nico or we get Rashford. We can't get both. Okay. Which one I would prefer? I would prefer Nico Williams. Don't get me wrong. I think Rashford, when he's like on top of his form, fully focused, I think he's a lot more lethal than Nico. But the problem is that doesn't happen that often. Right. So I would prefer Nico Williams. But again, you can't get both. It's one or the other. We don't have the money to sign both. We don't have the financial fair play to sign both. And we do have a donation. Baby Scumbag, who's always supporting this channel. Thank you so much, my friend, for your support, for your generosity. Baby Scumbag says, what's up, Mo? I personally think Hansi should have told the players to slow things down after the third goal. We were 2 minutes away of winning. Insane. Here's the thing. Barcelona have always been a team that defend themselves with the ball, with the possession of the ball. Barcelona are not a team that if they're winning, all of a sudden they stop and they retreat and they start defending. In fact, Barcelona have tried that in the past and it never worked. Teams always score on us because we don't know how to defend or park the bus. So the team did what they always do. They continue trying to score goals, whether they're losing, they're drawn, whether they're up by 1 goal, whether they're up by 10 goals. They keep attacking because that's how Barcelona know how to defend themselves. Because if you have the ball, the other team cannot score because the other team needs the ball. So Barcelona did what they've always done, what they know how to do. Unfortunately, this time it didn't work. It's just, that's what happens. Just like teams who park the bus and that's what they do. That's how they know how to do. And they still get scored on in the last minute. Same thing here, right? So it's unfortunate. It happens. It is what it is. And hopefully we'll do better next season. Raul says the signings we need are Nico Williams for left wing, Frimpong, any quality left back, and a young prolific striker. Again, financial fair play, financial situation. We're not going to be able to sign 4 players. We're going to have to prioritize. And as I mentioned in the last podcast on Wednesday, Flick wants 2 signings, a left winger and a fullback that can play on both sides. Would it be ideal to get 2 fullbacks, one for the right, one for the left? Absolutely. Would it be even more ideal to sign also a left winger and a striker? All 4 together? 100%. But we can't. We don't have the money to sign all those 4 players. We don't have the financial fair play to register those 4 players. So what are we going to have to do? We're going to have to prioritize, right? It's kind of like you look around your house, your fridge is not working, your microwave is not working, your TV is not working, and I don't know, maybe your water heater is not working. Ideally, you want to fix all 4, but you don't have that much money, so you're going to have to prioritize. Probably the fridge, that's very important to keep your food from spoiling. Maybe the water heater if you live in a cold place. That should be your priority. You fix those 2, and next month, when you get your salary again, you have more money in your pocket, then you can think about fixing your TV and whatever else is broken, right? Same thing with Barcelona. Would it be ideal to sign all 4 positions? Absolutely. Can we do it? No. Adonsi says, hi, Mo. Thanks for all you have been giving us. You are a true Barca fan. Bisca Barca. No, thank you, my friend, for watching. And thank all of you for watching and supporting this channel. Because, again, without you guys, I'm just a crazy guy screaming at his camera. I mean, I'm still a crazy guy screaming at his camera, but at least I have someone to watch me scream at my camera. And King City FX says, hey, Mo, just want to be I appreciate you for coming on here and spending your precious time with us. Keep up the good work. Brother, God bless you. No, God bless you, my friend, and God bless all of you watching, because without your support, again, this wouldn't mean anything. So thank you all for watching this channel, for your comments, your likes, your subscriptions, donations, everything. You guys are absolutely amazing. The best YouTube community by far. And I truly mean that. I'm not just saying that because I'm like, oh, I got to say nice things. No, I truly mean it because I watch other YouTube channels. Maybe not Barcelona channels, but I watch other YouTube channels, different topics, different. And I always look at the comment section, and it's always like just people being nasty to each other, insulting each other and just being smug. And I always look at the comments of my videos, and everybody's just like, just passionate fans talking about football, talking about Barca. And I love that. I love that. I mean, every now and then there is some guy who's trying to start shit. Unfortunately, that's, inevitable. But overall, 99% of the time, I think everybody's just absolutely amazing. It's clear that everybody's here because they love Barca, they love football, they're passionate about it, and they're just sharing their passion, and that's it. No need to be an asshole, no need to be a dick to others. I don't know when did we delve into that, or maybe that was always the case, but social media kind of brought it to the front. But unfortunately, we do live in times where it's just a competition about who's nastier to the other person. And if you could be the nastiest one, you're somehow a winner. I don't know when that happened, but thankfully that's not the case in this channel. And for that, I appreciate you guys because you guys are absolutely amazing. Best YouTube community out there, period. And we have another donation for Baby's Comeback. Thank you so much, my friend. But Baby's Comeback says, I also think other than Yamal and Pedri, there is no creative players. Dani Olmo has been a ghost lately, and the shark, LOL, let's not start. What do you mean, man? He's the shark. Come on, the shark. Yeah, I agree. I think Yamal, Pedri, who else could be creative? I think that's it. I mean, Frenkie has good forward passes and good forward runs, but as far as creativity, not. I mean, better than most, but yeah, you're right. I think that's our two creative players. Obviously, Rafinha just doesn't have that in him. It's not in part of his toolkit. Yeah, Dani Olmo. If Dani Olmo is inspired and is having a great match, he could be very, very destructive with his creativity at dribbling. But the problem with Dani Olmo, we either get a great version of him or a ghost. We can never get something in between. And that, of course, is a problem because he plays in such an important position, which is the attacking midfield. But yeah, you're right. Unfortunately, we only have Pedri. We only have Dani Olmo. Hopefully that will change. But yeah, for now, that's pretty much it. But again, under Hansi Flick's system, I think direct pass, being able to pass the ball, being able first to read the field well and make the correct passes, not just accurate, but to the correct player. I think that becomes a little bit more important than creativity. But of course, creativity does help a lot because it unlocks defenses, right? Which is what we see with Lamine Yamal and what we're desperately lacking on the left wing. So I think if we could get a left winger who's also creative, like maybe not as good as Lamine because Lamine is the best, but similar profile, I think would be good. I think with two creatives, wingers, and then we have a creative midfielder, Pedri, kind of like at the tip of the triangle. I think we're good, right? We don't need 11 creative players. I think with those three, we should be good. But right now, the team is just unbalanced because we only have creativity on the right. We have creativity through the middle with Pedri, and we don't have anyone on the left. So the triangle is kind of like, it's not a triangle. It's just a diagonal line. But anyways, let's get back to the news. Because speaking of talent, speaking of creativity, there is an academy player that Barcelona risked losing him during this summer transfer market, just like they lost Margiu last season. Was it last season? I think it was last season. Can't remember if it was last summer or the one before. No, it was last summer. And this player is Juan Hernandez. If you don't know who Juan Hernandez is, he's a 17-year-old attacking midfielder who currently plays for the Juvenil A, or the under-19 youth team. He was key, or one of the more important players in the Juvenil A securing their treble this season. They won their league group. They won the Youth Champions League, and they won the Youth Copa del Rey. And he was one of the key players in that setup and one of the key players in helping the Juvenil A win the treble. And of course, that has caught the attention of several European clubs, including Chelsea and Manchester United, both of whom have already reached out to the player, both of whom who are in talks with the player's agent because they're trying to convince him to leave Barcelona and make a move to the Premier League. Now, the plan is for Barcelona is, of course, to keep Juan Hernandez. He's a very important player in the youth setup. He's a important player in Spain's under-19 team. And Barcelona's plan was that for Juan Hernandez to play with Barca Athletic next season so he can continue his progression through the ranks and maybe one day play with the first team. But of course, now Barcelona run the risk that either Chelsea or Manchester United can convince him to make a move to the Premier League. And he does have a release clause worth 6 million euros. So if the player tells Chelsea, okay, I'm down, or tells Manchester United, okay, let's do it, all one of these clubs would have to do is pay the 6 million euro release clause, and the player is there. And of course, given how much money these clubs have, 6 million euros would not be a big deal. But of course, on the other hand, to play a devil's advocate, 6 million euros for a player who's not even 18 years old, who's in a juvenil, hasn't even played with Barca Athletic, hasn't even played with the first team. 6 million for a player like that would actually be good money. But of course, I would rather have a young, talented player continue in Barcelona rather than lose him. But if we do have to lose him, again, 6 million euros for a player who's never even played third division football, it's a pretty good deal. And, you know, that's the thing with having such a great academy that produces so many talented players, is that you produce so many of them that you got to lose a lot of them because, well, you cannot play 100 people on the first team, right? And if you give me the choice between having an academy that produces so many players that a lot of them get poached versus an academy that doesn't produce enough players, of course, I would rather have an academy that produces so many players where you can pick the ones you want, and the rest, if they get poached, they get poached. At least you make some money. But we'll see what happens with Juan Hernandez. We'll see whether Chelsea or Manchester United convince him to make a move, or whether he continues his trajectory in the Barcelona Academy. And speaking of the Barcelona Academy, one player who will not be leaving is Aaron Yakubishvili. I hope I said that correctly. If you don't know who Aaron Yakubishvili is, he's a 19-year-old goalkeeper who was also part of the Juvenil A, who was also instrumental in the Juvenil A winning the treble this season. And his contract expires at the end of the season, and it looked like he was on his way out. Negotiations had kind of broken down between Barcelona and the player. It looked like he was going to leave. And then in a twist of event, in a turn of events, the player decided to stay, started negotiating with Barcelona. Today, he was seen going into the Barcelona offices. A lot of people thought that it was because he was going to renew. And lo and behold, Barcelona officially announced through their social media accounts that Aaron Yakubishvili has renewed with Barcelona until 2028. So the Hungarian goalkeeper will remain with Barcelona, of course, alongside Diego Kochen. They are the two most promising goalkeepers who are currently in the academy. And that's why I've always said we don't need goalkeepers. You know, when there was all this talk about Deco eyeing this guy and that guy, and people were like, oh, we should sign this guy. And I'm like, hold on a minute. We don't need to sign anyone. We have plenty of talented goalkeepers in the academy. We have Diego Kochen. We have Yakubishvili, who, by the way, Barcelona's plan for him is for him to go on loan next season so he can play in first division football, continue growing, developing, and then he can come back the following summer, and then we'll see whether he'll be ready to become a first-team goalkeeper, or we'll see what else happens. But Aaron Yakubishvili will continue with Barcelona, and next season, Barcelona hope to loan him so he can continue his growth and development, because, of course, he's not going to play with the first team next season, so it's better to send him out, play first season football somewhere else, grow, develop, learn, come back with more experience, and we'll see where we go from there. All right, let's get back to the comment section, and then we are going to talk about Frenkie de Jong, because it looks like the Frenkie de Jong drama will not end, and we won't find out how it's going to end, well, until the end of the season. All right, let's see what everyone's saying. Where did we leave off? I think I left off here. Gomez Yanni says, hey, Mo, I know it's not within the jurisdiction of this channel to ask about Madrid, but do you think Alonso will revolutionize this current Madrid team, and do you think he will outplay us? That's a good question. And that's actually something I have thought about, because right now, Real Madrid have some of the best players in the world. Mbappe, Bellingham, Vinicius, Rodrigo, Valverde. I mean, they have very, very, very talented players. And the fact that they're sucking so bad is a pretty astonishing thing. Because with that kind of players, you should be doing great things, or at least doing better than what you're currently doing. And I think right now it has a lot to do with the coaching, right? Because Ancelotti is more of a go out there and do your thing kind of coach versus like Flick, who is very regimented and it's kind of like, this is what we're gonna do, all the way down to the smallest detail, right? So it does worry me that Xabi Alonso, who we've seen is a great coach, we've seen what he did with Bayer Leverkusen, winning the Bundesliga, winning a league that pretty much is already won by Bayern Munich before the season even starts. So it does worry me that they're going to bring a better coach because, again, Madrid should be doing a lot better given the players that they have. And if you bring a good coach that knows what to do, not to say that Ancelotti doesn't know what to do. He has won several Champions Leagues. But to bring a player or a coach, that might be able to get more out of the players that he has, that is a little bit worrying. However, I will say this. Regardless of what coach they get, they still have a big problem, and that's the locker room. They have too many stars in the locker room. And I said this last summer when a lot of Madridistas were celebrating, oh, Mbappe, we signed Mbappe, and we're going to win everything there is to win because, we have so many great players. I was like, I don't think that's going to be the case because you pack a locker room with so many divas that actually is going to implode. And that's what happened. Now, I don't know if them sucking is just because there's so many divas or there's other factors, but I did not expect them to do great with the signing of Mbappe because of that. Now, I didn't expect them to suck this bad, but nonetheless, I thought there was going to be problems. And also, when you take into consideration is that they have 3 left wingers. Like, whose bright idea was like, oh, let's sign 3 left wingers and let's all have them play together. Like, that was a dumb idea too. So that problem is still going to persist. You have Vinicius, who was the star, who thinks it's, God's gift to earth. You bring Mbappe, who also thinks he's God's gift to earth. And now you have and Bellingham, who also thinks he's God's gift to earth. And then you put them all in the same locker room, and it's going to be a big ego fight. So I think it's all going to come down to Xabi Alonso being able to, how well he can manage the locker room. Because managing a big club is not just about being a great tactician. You also got to know how to manage stars and players and, egos. And that's a very difficult part of the job. We saw how Setien used to do well with mid-table teams. And then when he came to Barca, he was completely lost. He was like a fish out of the water because he didn't know what to do with all these players. Because when you have the best players in the world and some coach comes and is like, all right, you need to do this, those players are going to be like, I'm the best in the world. Fuck you. Who are you to tell me? So it's a difficult thing to manage big locker rooms. Not anybody can do it. So I think it's going to have to do, it's going to depend a lot on how Xabi Alonso can manage all those egos because there are a lot of divas in the Madrid locker room. Cesar Gutierrez says, Pedro Porro may be a better suit for us, can play either side, good with his feet and good ball carrier, will be 26 next season. So may be a long-term signing. Okay. And Adonsi says, Barca to win 4-1 with all our goals coming on in the second half. I would like to see another manita, another 5 goals. That'd be cool. But of course, we'll have to wait and see. Herjan says, what do you think about selling Ansu, loan out Pau Victor, Rashford on loan, and promote El Masia right winger or bring back Messi? To me, it's a very feasible plan on the financial side. I mean, Ansu, I think Ansu's a done deal. I think Ansu finally realized that it's just not going to happen for him at Barca. And he has decided to leave. So I think Ansu will be gone. Pau Victor will be interested to see what they do with him. But I think a loan is probably, there's a high chance of him being loaned out. Because right now, he's in that age, he's 21, 22, where you still need to play to continue developing. If you don't play, you plateau. So if he's not getting minutes at Barcelona might be like, okay, yeah, let's send him out. Let him keep playing. He's never played first division football. He was playing with Barca Athletic. So I think it would be a good idea to send him out on loan so he can play first division football, continue development, honing his skills, and who knows, maybe not this summer, but next one, maybe he'll come back and be an absolute killer in the box. As far as Messi, that's over, right? We're not going to bring back Messi, and even if we could bring back Messi, we shouldn't bring back Messi. I mean, Messi's done. He's 38. He's almost 39. That chapter is long, long gone. And Solitude says, Mo, with Frimpong working in a system under Flick, would it be good or not? I'll talk about Frimpong in a little bit, but let's get back to the news and let's talk about Frenkie de Jong, because, ladies and gentlemen, there's still a lot of interest in Frenkie de Jong from other clubs. Well, actually, the interest has grown. Manchester United were after Frenkie de Jong for a very long time. However, as he started losing kind of cachet, there was less and less clubs interested in him. And before, the second half of the season, I want to say during the first half of the season where he was still injured, where Flick wasn't really relying on him, where he was mostly using Casado, it got to the point where the only clubs who were still interested in Frenkie de Jong were Saudi clubs, which, of course, Frenkie was not really willing to go to Saudi, despite all the money they were offering him. And I understand. So, he's still a very skilled midfielder. He's only 26 years old. To go to Saudi, it'd be kind of like going, throwing your career away. But since Flick started using Frenkie de Jong, his value has gone up. Interested in him has gone up. And we've gone from only Saudi clubs being interested in him to now many clubs in Europe being interested in him, including clubs in the Premier League. Now, why does this matter? This matters because we still don't know what's going to happen with Frenkie. Now, Hansi Flick wants Frenkie de Jong to continue. He wants to continue relying on him. Frenkie has said that he wants to remain at the club. However, conversation with his agent, Ali Dursun, have not gone anywhere. And of course, we have heard this story multiple times before of Frenkie saying, I want to stay, but then didn't even have the decency of picking up the phone or even meeting with Barcelona. Now, Ali Dursun did have initial meeting with Deco and the club, but that meeting didn't really go anywhere. And again, despite the player saying he wants to stay, despite Flick saying he wants to keep him, the talks haven't gone anywhere. And there is a scheduled meeting at the end of the season to see what's going to happen, because we still don't know what's going to happen. Barcelona don't know what's going to happen. Now, Frankie's contract, of course, expires in 2026. Barcelona would like to renew it, extend it. And Barcelona have informed Frenkie that they cannot afford his salary, because right now he has an incredibly high salary, the highest salary in all of La Liga, which not only is unaffordable for Barcelona, let's be honest, he doesn't deserve it. Frenkie does not deserve to earn more than Lamine Yamal. He does not deserve to earn more than Pedri or Pau Cubarsí or Iñigo Martinez or Balde or Koundé, players who have been much, much more important than him. So there's a problem, right? Is that Frenkie, of course, wants to continue earning that much, and Barcelona cannot afford to pay him that. So Frankie's going to have to make the decision, either stay in Barcelona and earn less or go somewhere else. And there is plenty of interest in him, so he could go somewhere else where potentially they could pay him the incredibly high salary that he currently has and that he desires to maintain. So there's a meeting scheduled for the end of the season. We'll see what comes out of that meeting. But right now, Frenkie de Jong's future remains uncertain. And it looks like we're headed for another Frenkie de Jong saga for what will be pretty much the third year in a row. Now, my question to you guys is, what do you think Barcelona should do? Should they keep Frenkie? Should they not? Let me know in the chat section or in the comment section if you're watching this when it ends. You already know my opinion. I think we should have gotten rid of Frenkie a long time ago. I still think we should get rid of him. But I want to hear you guys' opinion. All right, let's get back to the chat section, and then we are going to talk about Jeremy Frimpong. I promise. David Figueroa said, FIFA are the biggest thieves. I mean, there's definitely a lot of suspicious things that happen in FIFA. Someone was pointing out that how Qatar have been the biggest beneficiary of this Champions League final, because they're the sponsors of PSG, they're the sponsors of Inter Milan, and they also are the sponsors of the Champions League competition. So to have the two finalists being the teams that you sponsor in the competition that you sponsor is obviously very, very lucrative for Qatar. I mean, it's Qatar Airways that sponsors all these, but it's an airline owned by the country of Qatar. Not to mention, they also sponsor the Club World Cup. But I don't want to go into, conspiracy theories. I see the point. I wouldn't be surprised if there is something behind the scenes cooking because of that. After all, we have seen that the reason why Qatar got the World Cup to begin with was because money. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's something in the background fishy, but I'm not going to jump into conclusions unless there's actual evidence that there is something fishy with all these coincidences. Jordan says they're like the mosquitoes of football, always poking at you, always in your ear. Most annoying club ever. And Besu Fikat says, "Hey Mo, how you doing? Thanks for the everyday news. Keep up the good work." No, thank you, my friend, for watching. And Ben says, "A fetus in the womb starts kicking. Voila, Chelsea Papa to sign up." Yeah, pretty much that sums up the signing strategy of Chelsea. Jose Aguilar says Frimpong, if the price is accurate, is a really good option along with Balde. More attack mentality if needed and more defensive with Kunde and Martin. And with that comment, it's a good segue to talk about the long-awaited Jeremy Frimpong because, ladies and gentlemen, we do have news about the Dutch fullback because, as I reported in Wednesday's podcast, Hansi Flick has requested 2 signings from the club. The number 1 is a left winger, and a number 2 is a fullback that can compete with Jules Koundé and Alejandro Balde. Because as I've mentioned before, even though Barcelona would rather sign 2 fullbacks, one that can compete with Koundé and one can compete with Balde, given the club's limited resources, given the club's limited financial fair play, Barcelona are looking for someone who can perhaps compete on both sides. That way they can sign only one fullback. They can compete with both Koundé and Balde, give rest to the 2 rather than signing 2 players. And of course, Deco has compiled a list of players. We've talked about a lot of them, like Marc Pubil. But the number 1 name on that list, the one that Flick personally wants, the one that Flick had mentioned to Barcelona when he first was signed, because Flick didn't really, come to the club with requests. He knew the situation of the club. He was okay with whatever he was given. But the name Frimpong came up. Now, of course, Flick didn't say, I want you to sign him. He was like, Frimpong is a great player. It would be amazing to have him. But I know you can't sign anyone. That's fine. Give me whatever you have, and I'll make it work. So Frimpong is the number 1 name for the fullback position on the list for Hansi Flick. And here's the kicker. Frimpong could be very much so a possibility during this summer transfer market. Now, Frimpong has a contract with Bayer Leverkusen until 2028. And with the departure of Xabi Alonso, many of the players at Bayer Leverkusen are looking to leave. And, well, Frimpong seems to be one of them. Now, Bayer Leverkusen are not willing to negotiate the exit of Frimpong. So, therefore, any team that wants him will have to pay his release clause, which is set at 35 million euros, which is not a lot for a player like Frimpong, someone who is physically strong, who's fast, who's a dribbler, who can break lines, pretty much a beast, one of the best fullbacks in all of Europe. And with a 35 million euro release clause, that's a good deal. Now, what's the problem? The same problem as always. 35 million euros might have been nothing for a financially healthy Barcelona, but for a Barcelona with financial problems, 35 million euros, believe it or not, is a lot of money. And that could prove difficult for Barcelona because, of course, in order for Barcelona to sign anyone, they have to offload players. So first, Barcelona are going to have to see who they can offload this summer. Ansu Fati, I'm sure, will be one of them, but that's not enough to bring in Frimpong. They're going to have to be more offloading. So there's a lot of obstacles in Barcelona's way. They're going to have to first figure out what their financial fair play will look like this summer. Then they're going to have to offload enough players and then try to sign Frimpong, which hopefully by then it won't be too late because, again, Frimpong is looking to leave and everybody in Europe is interested in him. There's a lot of heavy interest in the Premier League. And as we know, there's plenty of money in the Premier League, and 35 million euros for any Premier League club is like me and you going to the store and buying a single cigarette, not even a whole pack. But there is a positive. There's always a silver lining. Silver lining is that Frimpong reportedly prioritizes coming to Spain over England. Now, in Spain, there are 2 clubs that were interested in him and can technically afford him. It's Barcelona and Real Madrid. Now, Real Madrid will be signing Trent. So that means they're out of the race. So if Frimpong prefers to come to Spain, that only leaves one club that he could go to, and that would be FC Barcelona. So big positive right there. 35 million euro release clause, not a lot. He prefers to come to Spain, and being that Barcelona are the only club in Spain that he could technically go to, that also is a big plus. But of course, we're going to have to wait and see what happens with Barca's financial fair play. All right, that is all the news for the podcast. So let's do comments, and then we will end it. And then, of course, later tonight, I will be posting another video because, believe it or not, there's more news because Barcelona, ladies and gentlemen, keeps me very busy. All right, let's see what everyone's saying. Solitude says, I hope Rafinha cooks next season as well, so he and Balde will feast on Trent at right back. I hope so too. For the sake of Barcelona, we need Rafinha to continue on this path. Otherwise, if he reverts back to how he was last 2 seasons, that's one less player on the pitch. And of course, we need all of our players fully focused and performing well. So hopefully Rafinha can continue on this path. And that's why I've said before, if I was Barcelona, I would pump the brakes on the renewal now because he's had 2 bad seasons and 1 good season. Right now, he's in a deficit. Let's see how he does next season. If he does as well or close, doesn't have to do the same numbers, but at least close. Then we could talk about a renewal because if you've had 2 bad seasons and 1 good one, I don't know, Barcelona are rushing a little bit with this renewal. But of course, I hope he does just as well next season and the one after and the one after and the one after. I want all of our Barcelona players doing great because if the players are doing great, the team will do great. And if the team will do great, well, what else can I ask for? That's all I want, for my team to do great. And Jardine says, I don't think we can afford to lose Frenkie de Jong, even with Casado and Bernal coming back. We need a Metronomus, and Pedri can't play every single game. I'm okay with losing Frenkie. Honestly, with all the money we spent on his transfer fee, his salary, how inconsistent he's been, now he never shows up in the big moments. I'm totally okay with that. Let's see. Hamza says Barca should renew Frenkie if they want to get a high fee for him. Selling him when he has 12 months left would be bad business from a sporting perspective. We can do without him. Yeah, but here's the risk that you run with renewing a player with the intention to sell him. Is that the player says, I'm not leaving. So now you're stuck with a player for many more seasons. Kind of like what's happening with Lenglet, right? Lenglet's contract was expiring in 2026. We extended it till 2027 to divide his salary over more, another year, and that way reduce the impact on our wage bill and our financial fair play. And now Atletico Madrid are like, we don't want him. So now you're like, crap. Now he's going to come back, and now you're stuck with him for 2 more years instead of just 1. So that's the problem with renewing players with just the intention to sell them, is that, well, if they don't leave, now you're stuck with them for many more years, where you could have been just stuck with them for 1 more year and then they leave for free. Let's see. Herjan says, if I'm not wrong, the Young salary is only so big because of deferred wages from COVID era, but without them, the salary is very similar to other midfielders. Plan is to reset his salary. No. So yes, it is very, very high because of the deferrals, salary deferrals. But even if you take the salary deferrals, it's still a pretty high salary. Why? Because Bartomeu, he used to love giving incredibly high salaries, inflated salaries, way out of the market. Like, oh, how much is a midfielder earning these days? 10 million? Okay, offer this guy 20. That's how Bartomeu used to operate. So yes, his salary is very, very high because of deferred wages. But even when you take the deferred wages, he's still earning higher than what he should be earning. So those two combined, obviously, make his salary astronomically high. And plus, if you take into consideration his performance, he's definitely not earning his salary that he's getting paid without the deferred wages. He's still earning too much, not just for what the market is, but even for his performance as well, because his performance has been incredibly like this, unreliable and inconsistent. Mohammed says, hi, Mom. Hi, son. Thank you for doing update. It's me, Mohammed from Sierra Leone. Thank you for watching, my friend. And Not the Gamer says, yo, Mo, is Dani Rodriguez okay? Dani Rodriguez will undergo surgery next week, and he will be out for 3 months, which is a terrible, terrible blow for the player. He just spent several months on injury, comes back, and then boom, another injury, and now he's out for 3 months. And it's not even his legs that he uses for football. It's his freaking shoulder. Like, talk about bad luck. But I guess the silver lining is the season's almost over, so 3 months. That means he'll be back for the preseason, which Flick wants to use him for the preseason. And David says, let's get rid of the joke. He's only playing so good because of Flick. And not even that. Like, he's had really good matches, but where was he in an Inter Milan match, right? He didn't show up. He hasn't shown up in a lot of big moments, and that's concerning, because if you're a captain, if you're a veteran, if you've been at the club for so many years, if you have experience already, if you earn that much money, like, we expect you to step up. And he hasn't stepped up in the big moments. You know who stepped up? It's the youngsters. You know, a 17-year-old child should not be the one putting the team on his back. It should be the veterans, the one who've been at the club for many years, the captains, who should say, guys, we got this. But instead, it has to be Lamine, it has to be Kouarsi, it has to be, Pedri. And that just doesn't sit well with me. We do have a donation. Nathan Forts, who says, hi, Mo. How is Javier Tebas' case going? Is he guilty? I was going to play out for a long time. Justice moves, but moves very slowly. So, I mean, the complaint was just filed by Luis Rubiales like last week. So we're probably not going to have a result for by next year, maybe more. So no updates on that front. Unfortunately, the wheels of justice turn very, very slowly. As an attorney, I have cases from 2020, 2021, 4 years. It's crazy. But anyways, that is all, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in, for watching, for your likes, your comments, your subscriptions, your donations. I will be uploading another video tonight, so stay tuned to the channel. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment, and as always, peace, guys.